So I think I left you last with the dry fitting of the legs into the mounting assembly and a trip to the bakery. So now what I'm doing is cutting up another piece of that Iroko to make the rails, which will be fixed to the underside of the table to help keep it straight. It's a little bit bowed, and these should help to straighten it up. And you'll see those a little bit later finished. Uh, This board also is a little bit twisted. It's putting a bind on the blade. That's why I'm using this screwdriver to keep it separated. And the board's a little bit crooked, as you will see here in a second, but the way that I'll be using it on the underside of the table, it shouldn't really be a problem. Now what I'm doing is just using a plane and a straight edge to flatten out the bottom where the legs will mount. It's got a little hump in it, and taking the time to do this will make life a lot easier to when it's time to mount the legs and screw them in place. As you can see there, um, it's just humped up a little bit in the middle. Now I've just taken a larger plane and cleaning out the middle part to make a nice flat area for those to screw onto. And planing cross grain always makes for some cool looking shavings, as you can see in just a minute. And it doesn't go as quickly as it appears to be going now. This sped up footage is always kind of fun to watch. But time spent planing is time well spent, I'm sure somebody said at some point. There's some of those cool little shavings, look like little ripples. Now it's a lot flatter fit, which should be much better. So now I'm just drilling the holes for the screws to attach these to the bottom of the table. Normally I wouldn't use mechanical fasteners or screws or anything putting something like this together, but this given the size of it and wanting the legs to be able to be removed, I thought it was important. You can see I'm wiggling the screw there. I've made these holes a bit oblong so the board can move. Seasonal movement in these boards, especially a board of this size, can be quite a lot from side to side. So that's why the hole's a little bit bigger to allow it to change with the seasons. The length really doesn't change much at all, just the width. Now just marking, pre-drilling the holes where these will be screwed in. Always a good idea to pre-drill in this hardwood, or you could snap a screw off. So now I'm about to cut the slots for the wedges in the legs, and I'm pre-drilling a hole at the base of the slot, which will prevent the leg from splitting. You can see in this shot coming up maybe what I'm talking about, but that hole at the bottom will prevent when you hammer your wedge in, it will prevent the leg from splitting. However, I'm doing this across the grain of the leg, which should be safe enough, but it's never a bad idea to put the hole in as well, just in case, and it will stop that piece from opening up. You can see there what I'm talking about, I guess. And I've got a mirror set up there on the bandsaw, which helps to kind of see your marks and make sure you get a pretty accurate cut for those wedges. Now just doing some finish sanding. A lot easier to sand the legs now than once they're fixed in the mounting assembly. And I think I just took these to 220 maybe. Nothing too extreme. I'll just be doing a teak oil kind of wipe over them later to give them a little more of a honey color to match the legs of the chairs that we're using at this table, which you can see at the end of the video. Now I'm dry fitting the legs and checking the wedges, make sure everything fits before I start the glue up. Now I'm just starting to glue these together. Unfortunately, gluing doesn't go as quickly as this footage looks like. This wasn't too extreme though, but sometimes a glue up, depending what you're doing, can be a little bit of a tense moment. Make sure you have everything ready and lined up, but now just putting a little glue in the wedges, and then I'll tap those in and let them sit up overnight. Just cleaning up a little bit of that glue now. A lot easier to clean it up now with a wet paintbrush or sponge or something than when it's dry, especially in these little tight areas. So it's worth the time now to do it. That saves you a lot of headaches later. And there they are. And they went together pretty easily, no major problems. You won't see these really when they're all mounted, but it does make for a nice tight fit. And now just cutting these off. I'm holding my thumb. If you hold your thumb right at where you're cutting, push down on these Japanese saws, it will help to keep the saw flat. Just be careful, watch where your thumb is, but it does help to keep it flat, and it won't really drift on you and kind of drift up away from the surface. So give it a try. Just keep an eye on your thumb. Now they look like little stove knobs or something. So just turning that one up to 11 and back. So one of these mounting assemblies had a little bit of a split in it that opened up a bit when I hammered the leg in. So I'm making a little template now to make a little Dutchman to put in it, or bow tie, whatever you call them, that will help to keep the split from opening up anymore. And they look kind of cool too. This is to date the smallest one I've ever made. Usually they're much bigger and they go in the top of a table or something to control a split, or and they kind of add a nice detail. But this is a little tiny one, which will go right there. Now this is a scrap of the maple from the legs. I'm just cutting that out. And I chisel it maybe about half as deep as this piece is, because I wanted to leave it proud, sort of as a detail on the bottom, kind of a surprise if you ever look under the table. So usually these would be planed down flush with the surface, but this one I leave it sticking up a little bit. I thought it looked kind of cool. And when you make these, if you size your Dutchman to the size of a chisel, it always helps. So I made the ends, the width of this chisel, and depends on the size bow tie you're making. You can make all of the sides fit the width of a chisel, which makes life a lot easier when you start to clean it out. And there I just tapped it in. You can see the crack that opened up, and this should keep it from ever getting any bigger. There it is after it's sanded down a little bit. Yeah. Now I'm ready to set these up here, check them out, put them in place. And you'll see just now that I kind of decided to make a change sort of late in the game. I've splayed these legs 8 degrees, but they're mounted to the underside of the table to be straight up and down. And I decide that I prefer for them to also be splayed from end to end. So that's what the next little few sequences are. You can see I've cut one here already to give the difference in the look, and it was worth it to me to take the time to make the change. So that's what this scary looking setup here at the table saw is. It's a way for me to cut this, which I chose a 6-degree angle. It's a way for me to cut the already assembled legs at a 6-degree angle, and then they can still use the same screws to be mounted to the slab with, but it will also splay the legs out from end to end at 6 degrees, and I thought it made a big difference. So that's what I'm doing now. A couple of passes to full blade depth, which isn't quite enough, as you'll see, but I just finish it off with a hand plane, and it goes pretty fast. You can see the blade just doesn't get all the way through, but the rest comes off pretty easy with this big joiner plane. And it's always nice to make curly shavings. I like to put those in as packing material in any of the pottery pieces that I ship. Always makes for a nice surprise and adds a good smell to the package. There it is, 6-degree angle. A little bit of a difference in the overall look, but I thought it was worth it. And there it is, screwed in. Now here are the rails that I mentioned at the beginning, and I'm just drilling some counter bores for the screws to fix those on with. And I do a lot of creative clamping here to try to straighten the board up to meet up with the straight line I've put on the bottom, because the boards were a bit crooked, but they were flexible enough that you could get them pretty straight. So that's what all the crazy clamping is for, to line them up and get them nice and tight against the board, and then put the screws in. And it made a big difference in straightening out that slight bow in the slab. And it gives a nice kind of look to the underside, I think, with these support rails underneath there. So a little bit more creative clamping and the last of the screws in the rails. Now we can flip it over and take a look. You probably can notice a lot of the sawmill marks are still in the board. And I've mentioned before about the lighter wood on the sides, which is sapwood, and a lot of people will cut that off and sand all the sawmill marks down smooth, and that's fine. I've done pieces like that also, but I like those marks, and kind of tells the story of the piece, so you can see them there, and I choose to leave them in for the pieces we make for ourselves. So now I'm leveling the piece on my bench and making a little marking guide, a marking gauge for the feet. There's an old pencil sharpener my sister gave me for a gift a few years ago, and it's one of my prized things in the shop. So now I'm just making up this little marking gauge, and you can see here I need to take 3 centimeters off the overall height of the table, so I've got it wedged up and level, and this is just a good way to mark your legs, to cut them off so they're all marked consistently and at the right angle. And you can use any scrap of wood that you have sitting around. Now the next step really is just to cut the legs to length, and it's ready for finish. I didn't get any footage of the finish on this piece, but I just used a water-based matte finish on the slab and the rails and underneath. just doesn't change the color of the piece at all. I just wanted the wood to be the wood. And on the legs, I used a teak oil wash on those, and then furniture wax to give them the look of the legs of the chairs that will be going with this piece, to give them a more of a honey color look. And that was basically it. And here it is in place in the old kitchen. This was a much needed improvement for us, and I think it looks right at home here. I think we're going to get a lot of good use out of this. It was originally a bit longer. They're about 35 centimeters longer, and I cut it off, and then I used the cutoff to make a side table for our bathroom, which you can see here, same kind of style. And now it's back to the pottery for a bit, and the next woodworking project will be a custom headboard and side tables for the bed of our rental that will be soon finished. A little more on that in a future video. Thanks a lot for taking the time to watch, and I hope you enjoyed watching as much as I enjoyed making it. So, till the next one, see you then.